In jazz theory class, I was flying through chord tone questions, just rapid fire, one after another. At one point, the professor actually stopped and asked, "How are you getting these so fast?" I told him, "I'm just visualizing the fretboard in my mind." And his response, "That's wrong." Not because my answers were wrong, but because my method wasn't traditional. And that moment stuck with me, because it's the same thing I see with so many guitar players. They're told to navigate the fretboard using note names, theory charts, or sheet music. But what if there's a better way? What if all you need is just a better map? So the first step is to really start seeing, shapes on the fretboard that relate to one another. Don't just keep learning new things all the time, but recycle what you already know. Just kind of copy and paste, I call it, And the cage system is beautiful for that. I know it's like a buzzword, in the guitar, online community. And some people will think, oh, it's ridiculous, but no, cage, it just makes sense to do it this way. And if you don't know what it is, it's just an acronym for open chords. So C-A-G-E-D. So open C, right? A-G-E-N-D. So if you take C, this is like one people don't do often, but I love this shape. And you imagine playing it like this and then barring it up, one fret. That would be C sharp, or up here, D. You can hear, here's a D. And then here's D played in that C shape. And you don't have to even play the whole thing. It's kind of hard to bar it down. I just usually play like the middle part or something. And you don't have to bar, or just play the first three, these three, top three, whatever. Then you can move that around. So now you want to do E in that shape. Just move it up 2 more frets. Right? And it just makes it so much easier. Once you know that C shape, you can just move it all over the fretboard. You've got 12 different places, but even beyond, because you can go up here. Here's C in the C shape, but just way up high, or the most common bar chord you see, this one right here. It's really the E shape. But then what is good about it is you can start to modify it. Like, okay, here is G in the E shape. Here's E minor, or G minor, sorry, in the E minor shape. Just take that one finger off, G minor 7, all these go this way. You start to all link it up and thinking about a cage, and also scales too. So if you were, playing, say, A in the E shape. So here it is right there. But then you could be taking this shape that goes around it right there. All right, there's that A major scale going around that shape. Say you wanted to do it for C. Move it up 3 frets. There you go. Same shape. Same shape for the scale, So it makes it real easy to just start unlocking the fretboard. And it doesn't help to know the note names, absolutely, but it's not quite as necessary as you think. As long as you get enough to kind of get by and you know the shapes, it's much better, because you're not just learning the shapes, but you're learning sounds. Like this has got a sound. And that's the same, It's like, yeah, it's getting higher, but it's the same overall sound, because the shape, the notes are arranged in the same way. And if you want to start seeing, the fretboard more like a map like this, I put together a free cage cheat sheet, and say it, that lays it all out. It's just super clear, and it's a really helpful resource. So you can just grab it at the link down below if you're interested. So the second step is to get a little bit more detailed into the shapes and sounds that are within these cage shapes, whether you're thinking about the chords or the scales or anything, just anything with the pitches, the notes, right? And that is using intervals, which is just the distance between 2 notes. That's all it is. It's either like you're really close, you're the same, it could be the same note, right? It's called unison, or you get real close, minor, second, which is just 1 fret apart, and so on. You can do all it, an octave, which is the same note, up high, and you can even go beyond that. The ones in between are called simple intervals. You go beyond the octave, they're called compound intervals, but they're all intervals. They're all just shapes on the fretboard and sounds, and it's just how I see like a map of shapes. So it gives you how they sound, how they look, how they feel under your fingers, and how they make you feel inside too, emotionally, So say you take, again, that, E shape. So I just see it as this collection of intervals, like a whole bunch. Take the first 2, right? Right here, it's called a perfect fifth, right? And I'm not going to go into the details of the intervals. I just want to kind of like show you the idea here, show you a path you can go down if you don't know this stuff that will really help to unlock the fretboard. So perfect fifth, That's a power chord, right? So here's at that bottom. There's a power chord, also like Star Wars. Right? So kind of hear these little melodies. It makes it, it's kind of like, oh yeah, there's that perfect fifth sound. And then from here to here is a perfect fourth, you know? Here to here. Now from that to that is an octave. That's an A to an A. Get familiar with that sound. Right? And so on and stuff. Then, you know, like, okay, here's a third, you know, it's a minor third and so on. So it's just a collection of these intervals and they all have a very distinct sound. So you can get familiar with the way it kind of feels on your fingers and then the sound that they make in certain intervals that you might like over others. I say it all the time, but I like the sound of sixth, you know? So like this. So it's they're separated by what they call sixths. Some of them were major, some of them were minor, but they were all sixths. And I love that sound, and like thirds a lot too. So get familiar with intervals both within chords and within scales. You know, when you go up a scale, it's like, oh, it's up a major second, you know, up a major second, minor second, and so on. So just a regular old scale like that, it's going to be just a collection of, you know, major and minor seconds. You know, that minor second that's it gives you a certain sound. That's the Jaws theme, you know. Because it gives you, all it is 2 notes, but it gives you a certain feel. So intervals are very, very powerful. And by the way, don't forget to grab that free cage cheat sheet I mentioned earlier. It's a great way to kind of just lock in this roadmap approach to the fretboard. It's right down below if you want to get it. So this last step is just a way to kind of work out the kinks in this whole kind of system and this way of thinking about the fretboard. Because when I first started playing, I was actually playing bass. I was about 12 or so. And I played bass for like 8 years. So I didn't, you know, really play guitar until I was 20. I just dabbled a little bit here and there. But when I was 20, I was like, all right, I'm going to really get into guitar. I kind of want to just switch instruments and make this my focus. And I translated a lot of stuff that I learned from bass quickly and easily, you know, because they're both kind of the same instrument. They're fretted instruments. And the bass is just the bottom 4 strings, you know, if you didn't know. And, you know, I take all these scales and things I'd learned. And I'd be like, okay, I got the fretboard real well. Here's like a G major scale. I could play that on bass. Boom. Play it on the guitar. It's great. Everything is tuned equally in force on those strings, so that makes it nice and symmetrical on bass. But then these 2 strings, the first and second, it really threw things off for me. It was really frustrating at first because these are tuned differently. This is tuned. You have to compensate by going up a fret, and same with this one. These are tuned to each other, but they're both going to be up. So if I was going up, you know, say like this, and I did from here. Sorry, I did like right here. It's like, oh, that doesn't work. You have to compensate by going up 1 fret, and that also throws the fingering off. So now the way it feels, everything under your fingers changes. So when you get used to these shapes, whether you're playing the cage shapes, you're playing the intervals, these scales, you know, you have to really work out the kinks between these strings here. But you're just going to do it slowly and really, you know, take your time, get it under your ears and change the fingering. And then once you do that, you just kind of forget about it. So for me, you know, again, it was a real pain point. It was a real frustration when I started. And I thought like, oh God, I'm never going to be able to work out. This is just so confusing. You know, like taking the stuff that I already know, but I have to modify it. It's just not working. But over time, it just completely became a part of me, you know. Same thing with the pick. You know, I played my bass with my fingers. So playing with a pick on guitar, I was like, this cheap little piece of plastic, it feels so fake. I just could not stand it. But I just kept practicing with a pick. And next thing you know, it's like another finger or something. It's an extension of it, you know. And, you know, learning to navigate the fretboard like a map, it's unlocked so much for me. But none of it would have really clicked without this one particular lesson that I had with someone. And honestly, if I hadn't learned this, I might still be stuck playing blind. So check out this video next, and I'll show you exactly why it changed my whole approach to guitar forever.